Hello, my name is Duranasaur, and this is my video covering my journey on a no pet, no death hunter in classic World of Warcraft. I decided to do a no pet, no death hunter after getting involved in the classic WoW hardcore community. If you are at all interested in doing hardcore yourself in World of Warcraft, you can get more information at classichc.net. I'll put a link to that in the description below. The hardcore challenge includes no deaths, obviously, and it's also solo self-found. So you cannot trade with other players, you cannot use the auction house, you cannot use the mailbox. So I had done the hardcore challenge on a hunter previous to this. Near the end of that run, I had people come into my chat that I knew who said, okay, what are you gonna do next? And they actually floated the idea of a no pet hunter. And at first I thought, that's ridiculous. What kind of crazy masochist person would try that? But the more and more I thought about it and talked about it with people, the more interested I became. So with this video, I'm going to kind of do a deep dive into this journey, into how I played it. I'm going to look at talent points, and I'm going to talk a bit about playstyle. Throughout this video, I will continue to hammer home that I don't recommend this. I don't think that this was a fun way to level a hunter. This was purely done for the challenge itself, and anyone who's interested in trying this, fair warning, it's not a fun way to play a hunter, but it is a unique way to play a hunter. So with the no pet hunter, obviously 1 to 10, everything stays the same. Once I hit level 10, instead of going and doing the pet quest, I completely skipped it. So throughout my run, if you watch the VODs, when people come in and they ask me, are you really doing no pet hunter? I was able to open up my spellbook and just show that I don't even have the tame beast ability. I never did the quest. I never got any of those abilities. So once you hit level 10 and every level after that and you start allocating talent points, I started by going into survival. I know that a lot of people might think, oh, you did no pets, so you did a melee hunter, but that's not the case at all. Every talent point that I allocated was towards a goal of finding ways to create distance. So I went into the survival tree. I went 5 of 5 into parry, which came into play later with counterattack. Counterattack is an ability where every time you parry an opponent, you can immobilize them for 5 seconds and create more distance. After that, I went into Savage Strikes because of the just insane amount of crit you get on your Raptor Strikes. There's a good chance you're still going to be Raptor Striking a decent amount, so having those 2 points in Savage Strikes is pretty big. Now, I opted to go into Entrapment. I think that there's a lot of good arguments out there for going into Improved Wing Clip, but my thought process was, I know that I'm going to use traps every single time I fight mobs, and I don't necessarily always need to use wing clip. I went all the way into Entrapment. Clever Traps was a given just because of the increased damage to Immolation Trap and the increased duration on Frost Trap. Deterrence is a great ability just because not only does it help you out in a nasty situation, it also increases your parry chance. So if you're in a situation where you want to get a counterattack off to create distance, you can pop Deterrence, and there's a good chance that you're going to be able to pop a counterattack. After that, I went into Sure-Footed, which in addition to the 3 hit that you get, which is going to be super helpful, you also have a 15% chance of resisting movement and parrying effects. So when we're talking about maintaining and creating distance on mobs, this was super helpful. I ended up resisting a lot of nets, a lot of novas, a lot of those types of things. Now I also went into Improved Feign Death just for the 4% increased Feign Death resist. I think this was a big deal because I was using Feign offensively quite a bit. So because I didn't have a pet and because my damage output was getting worse and worse as I leveled, anytime that I would pull 2 mobs, I would usually try to kill one, feign death, reset it, and then go again. So having that improved feign death was important because I was using that ability quite often. After this, I got counterattack, which again creates a lot of separation. It's a 5-second immobilization on the target every time you parry them. And then I went 3% into crit. And after that, I just left survival. I know people were thinking, oh, you should have gone into lightning reflexes. By the time that I hit 60, I was still under 200 agility. So 5 of 5 points in lightning reflexes would have only amounted to 30 total agility. And my thought was I would much rather get into marksman earlier so that I can get farther into that tree and get the other substantial abilities that I want. I started with improved concussive shot because I was using that ability quite a bit, and that again just helps with the separation. After that, pretty conventional with range crit, aim shot, Hawkeye, and so on. But I would recommend that if anyone does try this terrible thing, that they go engineering. My gear overall was pretty bad, which I think just shows how strong this is. As awful as leveling this was, I still think that it's probably one of the easier hardcore classes to do, even with the no pet challenge. The playstyle changed as I went. Early on, it was a lot of kiting, especially once I got Immolation Trap. I would lay down an Immolation Trap, open up on a target, and then just kite with Serpent Sting up. So just using dots and kiting to kill mobs, either before they got to me, or if they did get to me, popping a Raptor Strike, hoping for a crit, either wing clipping and get away, or just stay in melee range. And that's kind of what I did all the way up until the 40s, was just using Immolation Trap, hoping for Entrapment procs. If they do get super close to me, wing clipping, hoping for a counterattack proc, and then creating more distance and continuing to move away. That's the gist of what I was doing all the way up until the late 40s. In the late 40s, I discovered what was ultimately the most broken thing about this playstyle, which was Frost Trap and Entrapment. I ended up in Searing Gorge, and I was fighting fire elementals for a quest, and I decided to try and see how well Frost Trap worked, since Immolation Trap wasn't going to work because they were immune to fire damage. You'll see in a highlight in this video, the first time I do this, Entrapment procs 5 times on the mob, and the mob never comes anywhere near me. So after that, I started using Frost Trap more and more, and it actually got to the point where that was my go-to trap. No matter what I was fighting, I was going to put down a Frost Trap and just kite around it, because chances were that Entrapment was going to proc at least once, if not more than once, and I was going to be able to just walk around the edge of the Frost Trap, and instead of having to use a bunch of extra mana while kiting to get extra damage in, I could just take my time and auto shot as I walked around this Frost Trap. This was incredibly boring. It was not fun to do for hours on end. I don't think it was fun for people to watch, but it was the most efficient way for me to level. This kind of goes back into the whole masochist thing. Once I discovered this strategy and it became my norm, I knew that I could get to level 60 on this character, but I also knew that it was just going to be a slog to get it done. And it was. I'm glad that I did it, but I also know that it was not a fun way to level a hunter. Anyone who's leveled a hunter knows that it is one of the most enjoyable leveling experiences, because you are able to move quickly, you're able to do pretty much any quest that you want to do, and you feel incredibly safe and powerful at the same time. Doing this no pet challenge, I felt safe. That was probably the biggest thing, knowing that I had tools like concussive shot and wing clip and deterrence and feign death. I didn't ever think that I was actually going to die. My big concern was how long this was going to take and how tedious and boring it was going to be, which it definitely was. The entire journey was a lot. While I am incredibly proud of this achievement, I do want to say again, I don't recommend this. I don't think this was a good time. I think that this was a unique way to play Hunter that required a lot more attention, a lot more focus, but I don't think that journey made it worth it. So anyone out there who sees this and thinks maybe this is going to be a fun new way to play Hunter, it's not fun. It is different, but it does boil down to a lot more tedious work. That's my entire journey from 1 to 60 on a no pet, no death hunter. I'm proud of the achievement, but I will probably never do it again. If anyone has any questions, feel free to comment on the channel. Thank you guys for watching. Think about subscribing. I do have some other highlights of the no pet hunter on my YouTube channel if you want to check those out. I also do other hardcore characters. So like I said, I've got hardcore warriors going, and then I've also got some funny videos from raiding on my main and having terrible things go wrong. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy hunting.